Hey everyone, Nayashe here. Figured I'd go ahead and give my thoughts on the upcoming changes that KR got. But first things first, who did this? It's hilarious. But we're not going to be this bad, so I wouldn't worry about that. But, so this is the KR patch notes that we recently got, and they're all translated. There's a couple things missing, and I have to find the real patch notes that were actually translated from the actual website, but this is the brief overview of what we're going to be getting and dealing with. As you all have probably experienced, the recent nerf to chase stamina has been pretty devastating for a lot of players that were used to utilizing chase as a form of not only travel but defense, as the super armor would help you not get CC'd, so it actually hurts us decently well for both Musa and Maehwa, so we just have to make adjustments and make much more solid, smaller movements and not chase around for positioning as much, which is unfortunately what the class is built for, but I move on. So, a couple things. They fix some useless shit with Whirlwind Cut, and we don't care. This part was kind of annoying. I don't know if other people have been experiencing this, but it fixed an issue when using blooming after chase. An awakening stance made the character stop moving. That would happen if you used blooming prior and it was still on cooldown. So that was fairly annoying. You would think that you still had it available to use and it would actually attempt to use it, but then you actually wouldn't do the skill because it was still on cooldown. You would do some weird animation where you're kind of starting it, but then you stop. So that would get you killed if you weren't careful with that. So glad they're fixing that finally. For the actual changes to Maehwa, they added 4-guard back to Roll Rage, but they're now going to start making a lot of the CC options with protections no longer available for PvP, only PvE. So the stun for Roll Rage is now PvE only. Honestly, my opinion is I disagree with this change. Roll Rage is a pretty useful combo piece. I kind of wish that it was Tenacious Edge that they gave Frontal Guard instead, and removed the Stiff, because honestly that one isn't quite as useful for a CC. We have plenty of Stiffs in our kit as it is, especially in both Awakening and Pre-Awaken, and we are now losing a lot of our stuns with these recent changes, so we'll lose a stun here. Unfortunately, we do get the Frontal Guard, which we do need, but I don't think it was worth sacrificing the stun, because it was, like I said, a good combo piece. You could always use Royal Rage for the speed bonus when you're not in the middle of combat, so that's not a big deal. I didn't really have a problem with that. But, so yeah, this kind of sucks, but we'll have to make do and find other ways to connect our CCs. Mostly because, like, with Pedal Drill being unprotected as of late, we needed a reliable stun for comboing, but that'll also be brought up in here too. They fixed the issue where the second hit of Chaos Red Moon was applied twice. So I actually didn't personally see this, but or at least notice it, but probably could explain some of the damage boost that we've been getting. I kind of feel like this isn't necessarily applying to absolute Chaos Red Moon though. Let me double check here. Let's see. So it's probably not applying to the absolute Red Moon unless it's a translation issue. So I'm not quite sure about this one. I don't know if anyone else has been experiencing that. Sprinting speed and spear combat stance will be faster, thank God, since they decided to completely nuke our stamina. So that's much needed. So our travel time is not as diminished as it currently is. This will help with making use of more natural movement rather than chasing all the time. I guess they want us to kind of act similarly to other classes, using chase as a form of combat movement for short bursts rather than long distance travel as well. That's fair, whatever. I can understand that, but I feel like they should remove stamina costs or at least lower them for these other skills like Royal Rage, for example, which is 200 stamina just for one hit, and then of course Stigma and other abilities as well. But yeah, anyways, moving on. Pedal Drill will now have super armor, so that's good, much needed. I don't know if this applies to the full animation of full animation of Pedal Drill, where the leap as well as the actual attack. I'm assuming so, because when they did the same change to Moonrise, they said we'll have super armor, and it applied to the full thing. So I'm assuming that means the entire thing will have super armor. That means we won't have the iframe that we originally had prior to the removal of all these protections previously. But that's fine. That was much needed. It's a good bruiser skill, as well as originally a combo piece, but not anymore. They removed the stun and made it PvE only, so this kind of sucks. So it's not a very good engaging skill anymore. I mean, it's good for bruising, but it's not good for actual CCing anymore now. So that's unfortunate. I'm not very happy about that, as I'm sure a lot of other Maehwa are not happy about that, but whatever. At least we got super armor back. It was very difficult, if almost useless to use right now as it is without super armor, so at least we can make use of it now. And it can be used as a combo piece. It does down attack damage and whatnot, so. The next one would be Flow December will have super armor. So this is fine. This ties in with Pedal Drill. And unfortunately, they moved the knockdown effect and made it PvE only, so it's no longer a combo piece per se in terms of CC potential, but it does do down attack damage. I don't really see us using December all that much anymore for anything useful other than bruising. And a lot of the times when you Pedal Drill and December on top of someone, if they have a grab, they'll just grab you in it, so December might honestly be considered useless now, unless you just have a high enough AP where someone's already knocked down, you can make use of it that way. So capitalizing on a friendly's CC'd opponent, especially in large scale. So at least it gives us some bruiser damage back with these two. That's fine, I guess. In large scale, the stuns in a flanking scenario do matter, and the knockdown matter, but in large scale, if we're going to be working with our team more often, our guild more often, we can kind of capitalize some things, capitalize on down targets, so I guess that's okay. Frost Pillars will inflict knockdown in PvE only now. This hurts, actually. And I see the direction that they're going. They're trying to basically turn this into a float meta after nerfing float damage for some reason. But yeah, anyways. So, yeah, Frost Pillars losing its knockdown. That kind of sucks. So now we have even less knockdown options between these two. The only one we have now is Petal Bloom, and that's unprotected, so strictly for a combo piece. So Frost Pillars, we're basically going to be using it for bruiser damage now with the frontal guard, and that's unfortunately how it is. So not as useful, but at least you can do Frost Pillars into a Red Moon with Shift Q afterwards, so at least you can do that. Maybe it'll actually help out with some of the combos with the float damage, so because this could knock down your opponent, and then you would just, that'd pretty much end your combo if you did Moonrise and then you did Frost Pillars. So the Flow, Tip of the Iceberg, will have a frontal guard now, and will inflict knockdown in PvE only. There again, same kind of thing as Frost Pillars. Tip, having frontal guard will be good for bruising damage in large scale. Probably not so much in 1v1 or 1vx. Maybe 1vx. So you could probably pull these off decently fast in a scenario and be protected with frontal guard. It means you're still vulnerable from the sides and the back, but at least you have frontal guard now. So that'll be a nice addition. Super Armor has been removed from Moonrise. I figured this was probably coming. They gave it to us, and people were basically just chasing around and spamming Moonrise, which it was an awkward state for Maehwa to be in. We're not designed to do that. Moonrise is supposed to be a combo piece. I don't like that it doesn't have super armor at all anymore, but at the end of the day, it is a combo piece. They gave us a lot of other protections to help us out with bruising damage and initiation, kind of. But this shouldn't have been used in the way it has been in the last few weeks after they gave it super armor. So I don't like that I lost super armor, but I understand why. So sucks, but it is what it is. Moonrise also has a slow animation too, somewhat slow animation, so that does leave us very vulnerable. Just not supposed to use it in large scale anymore, basically, unless you're flanking. They fixed the issue where the PvP damage of Cloud Stab was lower than the actual number of hits shown. So this will be interesting to see. I didn't even know this was an issue. I kind of felt like the damage was just lower because of the simple fact that they nerfed the air attack damage. So if this means our damage goes up, even a small percentage, that will be nice. So hopefully this brings back some of our nuking potential to kill people in 1v1. Because that's our job. We're supposed to murder people quickly, and right now it's a little difficult unless you have a large amount of AP. So Blooming Stride and Blooming Step will now inflict stiffness in PvE only. So this really hurts. So not only did they previously, nerf Pedal Drill to where it didn't have super armor, they gave it back to us and removed a stun. So there's an initiator gone. This Blooming Stride and Blooming Step weren't great initiators, but they were one of the few protected ones we had currently. And now they're no longer good for initiation. So pretty much Awakening doesn't have any means to really initiate easily. We're kind of dependent on landing some random stiff with like oppression, or maybe you somehow bait them real hard and pull off a stigma without getting CC'd yourself. Other than that, you're pretty much stuck going into pre-awakening to CC your opponent initially for engaging now. So the awakening kit's not looking good overall. From a bruiser large-scale perspective, we're okay. But from forcing us to stay in awakening, like most people tend to, that play Maehwa tend to stay in awakening for pretty much their entire time, and they don't use the awakening kit, the pre-awakening kit at all. That's not going to be a thing anymore. You have to adapt, and you have to use pre-awaken as well as awakening, which is what I think their focus is right now. I mean, most experienced Maehwa players can agree that they could solely rely on Awakening Kit and not need anything else. I tried to weave in a lot of pre-awakening options like Dragon Bite and Stub Arrow, Triple Shot, maybe even a charged evasive shot every once in a while for the iframe. But that was pretty much the extent, besides maybe a random blooming because I caught him with Stub Arrow or a Red Moon. Those would be capitalizing abilities only, though. It wasn't like a primary skill I'd be targeting to use. So it looks like that's what they're forcing us into, playing with both kits rather than completely and utterly focusing on the Awakening kit. So, and some stupid Euphoria Marine costume change. So that's whatever. So with that said, I put together a little something. This was prior to, this was with the changes that we got this week, and doesn't include the changes that we're going to be having that I just went over. But the KR update, so basically our CC options are going to be as followed for the pre-awaken kit. We got Stub Arrow, Triple Shot, those are both stiffs with unprotected status. Charged Evasive Shot is going to be a knockback, and it's unprotected. So we still have those. I use those like I mentioned previously. They work well. They work even better now than they did before because there's so many skills that are not protected anymore. However, we will start to see some of those come back. It'll just be less CC options. Dragon Bite, Stiff. It's a frontal guard. Always useful, pretty fast. You just got to be careful with its usage so that you don't slide forward past the enemy and get CC'd from behind you. So, Blooming is a stun. It's unprotected, so we still have Blooming to use all the way up to Absolute Blooming. All 3 versions of it work fine for stunning your opponent. Absolute Blooming just does a shitload more damage, and honestly, right now is probably some of your highest damage output in between both kits. Red Moon is a float and a frontal guard. So Red Moon has become infinitely more useful since all these changes. Before, with the animation, which the animation is still kind of clunky and slow and easy to counter, but everyone's still really unprotected, so you can actually land Red Moon more often on people when they originally thought they would be fine. So Red Moon's become infinitely better than it originally was, but still not too amazing. It's better to use in a combo now. After you already float someone, you float them again with Red Moon and then pull off more air attack damage. Follow up with a back chase Blooming kind of concept, and that does pretty good. Blind Thrust is a stiff and it's unprotected. I labeled this as a CC option because you can use it as a combo piece, but it's generally not all that useful anymore because of the CC changes. So it's there, but wouldn't bother really trying to use it for a combo potential unless you're trying to do Blind Thrust into Blooming cancel, and then that's fine. Then you got these randoms that are CC options, but they all kind of suck in their own right. So Divider has a knockback. It does okay if you use the second hit of it by canceling into it and then doing the knockback immediately on a target. But with the CC options, it's not really worth to waste a CC, a hard CC, which is a knockback, float, stun, or knockdown. It's not really worth to use Divider to take up one of that count because you only get a count of 2 now. Carver, it's a float, same kind of concept as Divider. It's not worth using it. It just doesn't do anything amazing, and then just wastes a hard CC option. Decap is questionable. If you level it up to absolute status, it actually does okay damage. And it's a stun, which we're a little low on stuns right now, so it actually might be worth it for you to pick that up. Again, unfortunately, it still has all the same issues, being a slow animation and whatnot, and it's pretty much only useful in 1v1 scenarios, not really large scale. You can also use this if your target's downed. It doesn't do down attack, if memory serves, but it's still good to use for damage potential. So yeah, no down attack damage. Just make sure you don't use the 100% on it. 100% is absolute garbage. Kicks are not reliable, so don't even bother with them. And they're all unprotected. Every single one of these skills is unprotected, so they're not very good CC options like right now. Decap is like the only maybe exception, just due to the lack of stuns. Alright, so, and in the Awakening kit, here's our CC options that we have basically right now. So we got Moonrise, which is a float, now unprotected, unfortunately. But it's a combo piece, so that's fine. Cloud Stab, float, unprotected. There again, combo piece. It lost its frontal guard a couple weeks ago, to almost a month ago now. So that was unfortunate when we lost the frontal guard, but it's used as a 1v1 combo nuke or flanker nuke anyway, so that's fine. Petal Bloom is a knockdown. It's frontal guard on charge up only, and it's unprotected on the stab, so it's a combo piece now. Maybe sometimes you can bait people in and then keep charging so that you maintain that frontal guard. I've done that a few times, and you end up baiting your opponent in. They use an unprotected skill, you use your stab on it, and then you end up knocking them down, so that's not too bad. Oppression is a stiff, and it's unprotected, so it's an AoE stiff, and it's become infinitely more useful because of everyone being more open now. So It's actually not bad to use it to catch your opponent and start an initiation. Problem is, because we don't have any stuns besides blooming and decap right now, you got to do oppression, catch your opponent, back chase, and try to do blooming immediately, because you're not going to be able to float them quickly enough with Moonrise generally, and they'll just escape due to the no stun. The CC on Stiff is really short in comparison, so it's unfortunate. Tenacious Edge is a Stiff. It's unprotected still. Not really useful though, honestly. Not even for a combo piece unless you're like out of skills. So wouldn't even really worry about using it. Stigma is a Stiff. It's unprotected. Basically almost chopped up to a combo piece now for just repositioning behind your opponent, but you don't necessarily need to do that. So it's lost its usefulness since they removed the iframe and frontal guard on it, unfortunately. And then in our not so reliable, unprotected CC options are Moonlight Dash, which is a knockdown, and New Year's Eve, which is a Stiff. Interestingly, you might want to probably explore using New Year's Eve after landing like a Pedal Drill. Since Pedal Drill doesn't actually do a stun anymore, you could do New Year's Eve right after you land, because it's a stab. Any stab ability you can use New Year's Eve, and that will produce a Stiff. So that actually might see some use here. I don't know, I gotta play around with it and see what happens. It's probably still useless though. And then in the Rambams, as I like to call them, the Crimson Gus is a float. It's unprotected. So that's still useful for float damage, so you can still rely on that for a decent CC. But yeah, I mean, that pretty much wraps up the changes. There is one change that wasn't on the notes that I showed here, but on another set of notes from the actual KR website that was translated, it said that the Awakening C-Swap doesn't float anymore. So I'm not sure if that's true or not. If that is true, that kind of sucks. Because I tend to use that a lot for floating my opponent. Hopefully that's not the case though. But we'll have to see. Till next week, basically. But yeah, in light of all these changes, I mean, like I said on my other videos when people ask for like a new guide, for example, with all these massive changes, there's really no point in me making a guide right now until everything is all done. Otherwise, it's just going to change again, and I'll have wasted my time and your guys' time learning something new. For right now, it's best to just explore what you can do, and just follow the changes and just try to accommodate and adapt where you can. So, that's it for now, guys. I will hopefully have another video up as soon as they provide more useful changes. I'll also be looking into Bless Online as well, just to try something different while BDO's in this odd state of progression, maybe, or killing itself, one of the two. But yeah, so if you have any questions, put them in the comments below. Otherwise, if you like the video, go ahead and give it a like, share it, do all that stuff. I appreciate you all. And take it easy.